Thank you very much, Premier. Commissioner Malema.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to ask this question. How old are you now?
I'm 64, Commissioner Malema.
And now,
You don't have to be sorry.
if you are in a position of appointing 2 people out of 3, very good people, black African female, a 44-year-old African male, and a 64 years old into the bench, all qualified, well experienced, what will you do?
Well, it's not for me to say. It's for the JSU to decide. If they want to appoint the younger one, it's much better. If she's acquired equally the same experience as the old one, it's all right. I don't have a problem with that, even with myself. But statutorily, I still have 10 years to render my services as a judge. So there's more time.
We're not talking about the same subject. I'm talking about something else, and you're talking about the JSC. I'm talking about you, and you cannot be a JSC. You are in a position where you must choose 2 people, and I've given you this scenario. What options will you take in the interest of empowering the young ones to ensure that we build and continue to grow potential young judges, and in the situation where we are also thriving for gender empowerment, and given the fact that we also have a 64-year-old, 64, 44, and a female, what will you do in that scenario?
I wouldn't know if I would ever be in that situation, but it all depends on what you want. I would imagine that the age would not be the only criteria you can measure your decision. And you would have some other aspects to take into account, but it really depends on you. But empowerment of women, and so is what I also encourage young people. In fact, maybe that's why I stayed longer in the as a silk. That was my aim as a silk, was to empower my people. For that matter, I have now, as I speak, there are 3 senior counsel, one of whom is the 4th one is a white. So I've empowered a lot of young people in the field as advocates. The male ones are countless. Senior, some of them are judges for that matter. So I wouldn't really have an objection if let's take my case now. If you have a young female who is well experienced like myself, and you feel that she should take the position, I don't have a problem with that.
Well, the age difference ordinarily will suggest that they will never be experienced like yourself, because you had an advantage of age, and they are much more younger than you. But when it comes to testing them, they are on the understanding of the law and all the requirements. All the 3 of you are superb. It's what we are looking for. The only thing we are left with now is gender and age. It will be ideal for the judiciary to actually get a much more younger person if it had to choose between the 2, because it makes more sense that they will stay longer, they will continue to serve, and that will be like an investment, actually, as it were, in the judiciary.
Well, that's fine. One of my experiences is that actually judges don't retire. You still have judges who are way beyond 75 years. They're still working in the service in the sense that they are appointed in commissions, they are appointed in various capacities, And so a judge doesn't really retire as such. You remain a judge until you die. So you remain, in my view, to be committed to that profession, if I can call it that, of a judge.
What is your take on Muti?
Muti.
Yeah, Muti, the African herb.
Well, whether you believe or not, there is a talk of Muti. I personally don't have any thing to express on that, my view on that.
So you think people can take Muti and get engaged in different activities because they are motivated by Muti?
Yeah, I don't believe in Muti, and for your information, I don't believe in it.
And you don't think that people can be motivated in whatever way possible by Muti? They can get Muti and as a result of Muti engage in an activity because they are motivated by Muti.
My experience, both as a magistrate and as we put it as an adult African, I know that blacks, certain sectors of the blacks people believe in Muti. And my view is that whatever you believe in, it works for you. Some people believe in church, in a certain categories of churches, and those churches, they advance their interests and so on, so things work for them. Some people believe in Muti, and in their view, they have faith in that, and it works for them. So it all depends on your belief. Personally, I don't believe in Muti. I don't get involved in that.
But people...
I cannot deny that the black people, there are certain categories of people in black communities who believe in Muti. And I don't condemn them for doing that. I don't share any views to say they're wrong in that. It's like church, as I say.
But do you think a group of people can act because they are motivated by Muti? Get into action because they are influenced by Muti?
Well, I wouldn't venture to know what the group, because you know what, in my experience is that people act differently. When you act as when you have an individual mind, you've got that mind. You exercise your discretion in accordance with what you believe in. But a group mind, you must act as a group, and you've got a group mind. Psychologists will tell you how those people behave. I'm not a psychologist, so I can't be in a position to say if these people have this belief, then they must behave in this way. I'm not a psychologist. I'm sorry to say that.
I think maybe if I may, do you believe, this is what I think Commissioner Malema is getting to. Do you know it to be the position or not that some African people believe that there is power in Muti which could either protect them or allow them to do certain things? Is it a practice that you can relate to as an African person with your experience? That's part of the question. It may not be the whole question, but as a matter of practice, do you know it to be the case that an African person can apply Muti, confident, for instance, that the bullet won't enter? We had a candidate one day at the JSC saying the Muti, he knows that you can apply a certain Muti even if they fire at you, the bullet won't enter. He was applying for a labor court position. So can you relate to that?
No, I'm sorry, CJ, I can't relate to that. But I know in the Marikana Commission, there was that, if that is aimed at directing at that, there was that allegation that people have believed that they would be protected, they had used the Muti and so on. We have had that evidence.
And you signed a report that blamed that workers acted because they were motivated by Muti.
Is there a clause where we said in that report that those workers were motivated by Muti?
Yes.
I don't remember it.
So you signed things that you don't remember?
I don't remember. We never said, as far as I'm concerned, we didn't say that those people did what they did because they were motivated by Muti. That report, there were a lot of allegations in that regard. Fortunately, the three of us didn't believe in Muti. That is Judge Falam and then Advocate Embrach Hessi, but the allegation was there.
Now, can you explain the judgment where you recently gave a judgment and absolved a white person who had put a black guy in a container?
You know, the way I was trained, right from the start, when I came from the university, I never prosecuted. I missed that opportunity to prosecute. I was a magistrate immediately, right from the university. My train of mind is that you don't look at who is this. Is it a white person? Is it a black or whatever? You look at the facts and you interpret the law in accordance with what you believe is the correct position, regardless of whether it's a white or black. You don't look at the colors. Otherwise, a judicial officer who does that, then it can pose a danger to certain societies, because then you have also to preside over certain cases which may involve certain religious beliefs, and if you don't believe in this one, then you have to give judgment in favor of this one which you believe. You've just got to, all what you have to do as a judge is the ability to identify the issues from the facts given to you in civil trial matters, even including criminal matters for that matter. It's very difficult to evaluate evidence and come to the accurate decision. But you try your best with your experience to evaluate facts, and then once you have identified the issues, then you apply the law. You don't look at who is this, who represents who that, who is the plaintiff, who is the defendant. That you don't consider as a judicial officer. That's my view as a judicial officer anyway.
No, that's not the question. I want you to explain that issue where a white guy, you put a black guy in a container and there was nothing wrong. In your view, I hear what you are saying.
The issue was defamation in that case. We're not talking about putting a guy in a container and then find a judgment in that regard. No, that was not the issue. The issue was defamation by the newspaper, by the way, not the guy put in the container. That was the issue.
Now, as a judicial officer, it's always important to look at the law, but it is equally important to look at the people who appear before you may come from a very strong background. For instance, males can always dominate females, and whites can always have got a history of having dominated blacks. And to want to ignore all that this one comes from a position of authority, can be misleading at times.
I'm not too sure. You know, in my view, there are 10 commandments of a judicial officer, one of which is impartiality, one of which is independence, one of which is patience, one of which is prompt. There are 10 of them, which I have. I don't want to waste the time of this house. I'm sorry about that. So you don't look at